Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage, Chris Heron, Secretary General, AVERE.
A warm welcome to all of you to AEC 2024 on behalf of all of us at AVERE. I'll start by giving thanks to our host for today, the Principality of Monaco, to our partners, AVERE Monaco, and to all of our sponsors who you can see here on the screen. And of course, to all of you for joining this discussion on Europe's e-mobility future. Because this is a critical time in Europe's electric vehicle transition, and it's a critical time for all of us to be coming together today for this debate. I joined the e-mobility community in September of this year. I actually signed my contract back in June. Ever since, it's been a summer and then autumn of bad news. I promise those two things are not related. But picture me coming down the stairs in the morning to take my morning coffee and sitting at the breakfast table, looking at my phone at what news lies ahead for the day. I'm a father with 3 young children, so these 5 minutes of peace are a very important part of my morning routine. But I've lost track of the number of times where that 5 minutes has been derailed by bad news from our ecosystem or for Europe as a whole. Bad news about investments cancelled or bankruptcies across the e-mobility value chain. Bad news about some of our industrial champions threatening job losses for the first time in history. And bad news about the slower than expected growth in EV sales across the continent. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to be honest, I'm someone who deeply believes in the importance of an energy transition made in Europe. And so this news is worrying for me. But what's more worrying are the mornings where I've come down for breakfast and seen a different type of bad news. Bad news about national governments who are starting to rally against the importance of this 2035 trajectory. Bad news, for example, of Italy calling the 2035 goals that we've set ourselves a grave crisis for Europe's industrial future. Or member states, even frontrunners like France, starting to question some of the steps to getting there. That's bad news because I know that the pathway we have until 2035 is not part of the cure for the situation and the headwinds that we're facing today. It's not a part of the problem. So I believe that we in this community have to make our voices more loudly and strongly heard in this debate to show to our politicians the value and the importance of these 2035 framework. The 2035 framework which provides us investment certainty for building up this ecosystem across the continent. And the 2035 framework which keeps us on track to hopefully lead in this transition and not let others around the world dictate its terms. So my hope is that we can talk to politicians and consumers and be a lot louder in this debate and take away from the false discussion about the speed of the direction where we're going, but onto the really important discussion which we need to have about the enabling conditions for getting everyone in the ecosystem towards those targets. Across the next 36 hours at AEC 2024, we'll have a host of panel debates and discussions to really dive into these enabling conditions. We'll have panel debates on urban transport, panel debates on finance, on affordable vehicles, and panel debates on circularity. Our discussion should not stop here, though, in the room. We'll have to take the conclusions from this debate onwards and raise the loud message to our politicians in Brussels and at the national level, and show them the importance of acting now to really seize the opportunities that do still lie ahead for Europe and its zero-emission transport goals. The opportunities for cost savings, for economic growth, for the new jobs that can still be seized, and for the technology leadership which we can achieve in the new business models from seizing these opportunities. I invite all of you in the room to check out the Opportunity 35 initiative, which we launched with Charge Up Europe back in September to start bringing this positive narrative to Brussels. So I know that my commitment in leading AVERE since September will be to ensuring that we as an association have a much stronger and more impactful voice in this debate. I also know that it's only going to be through collaborating across our ecosystem that we can make our voice heard in the strongest and most collective way. So I'm really excited for the debate to come across the next day and a half to start bringing those solutions on the table. And then we're working with all of you to really drive this positive narrative forwards and making sure as Europe that we do get on track to achieving that 2035 goals and the opportunities they bring. Thank you. Now, before I hand over to our next speaker, some brief housekeeping for everyone in the room. Please do keep your phone on silent during the plenary sessions. And for those of you who haven't yet accessed the Wi-Fi, we've got the code here on the screen. It's also on the back of your badges. There is also an AEC event app, which you can download at the QR code, use it to access the agenda for the day, to network with your peers, to understand the floor plan of this quite complex building, and more. Please scan the QR code to get access to that. And just to take a step back to the agenda we have ahead of us for the next day and a half. We'll go through today with our opening ceremony, which will be then followed by 4 rich plenary debates on key topics about finance, about industrial policy, about the urban electrification of transport, and about grid flexibility. Tomorrow we'll be back bright and early for discussions on affordability and circularity before this event closes. And don't forget the networking reception, which will be taking place with our partners AVERE Monaco at 6:30 upstairs in this building. Last note from my side will be EVS38, our flagship conference that's taking place next year in Gothenburg, a big EV exhibition. There's a lottery ongoing for anyone in the room to win a free ticket to EVS38. You can scan the QR code here on the screen to enter that lottery, something you don't want to miss. But without further ado, I'll now invite our second speaker onto the stage, Maciej Mazur, President of AVERE. Maciej, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, very much. I really hope that those two things are not related in any way, meaning your appointment and the moment we are facing on the market right now. I hope it's totally opposite. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of e-mobility, on behalf of AVERE, the European Association for Electromobility, it's my great pleasure to welcome you in this wonderful venue. We are, as AVERE, really honored to host so many experts in the field of new mobility. And I'm really delighted to see so many knowledgeable individuals in the room, because together we have much work to do. We are, as already Chris mentioned, at a pivotal moment, both as an organization and as a market. Zero-emission transport has developed dynamically over recent years. We have achieved numerous successes, and those successes are often represented by various acronyms like AVERE, EPBD, RED II, and RED III. Today, Europe is registering not just thousands, not even hundreds of thousands, but millions of electric vehicles annually. We have grown in strength, but with this growth come the challenges of maturity. And I'm the same as Chris. I'm a father of 3-year-old, and I often hear from friends with older children. The older they get, the bigger the problems. And I think the same holds true for electromobility. In 2024, we began hearing voices questioning the direction set years ago. During the European parliamentary elections, there were many critical opinions about the Fit for 55 package. And even today, the situation remains tense. In Brussels and Strasbourg, there are voices questioning the feasibility of CO2 standards, and not only for 2035, we are quite used to that, but also for the near term of 2025. Although slowing down this whole process of the e-mobility sector could only harm Europe's automotive players, there is a kind of temptation being purely visible to push back on ambitious targets. National governments, Chris mentioned a couple, are making proposals with very, very short-sighted approaches, which seem to respond to public demands. Unfortunately, these demands are often shaped by misinformation deliberately introduced into the public discourse. AVERE's role has never been more essential. We must stand as guardians of the facts and take actions to dismantle myths. In September, we launched together with Charge Up an important campaign called Opportunity 35. Our role as an association, as an industry, is to demonstrate how much Europe can gain from the electromobility revolution. Simultaneously, we need to understand that our duty is to warn against the risk of short-term political gains that delay the transformation of zero-emission transport. These risks are global in scope, and one consequence could be reducing Europe's automotive sector to a regional player. To avoid this scenario, we must speak out even more frequently in key discussions, moderate these conversations, and create the space necessary to implement ambitious policies. That is why conferences like AEC, like EVS are right now so important. And I'm confident that over the next 2 days, we'll address numerous critical topics here. I also hope that we will see many groundbreaking business discussions, not only during the conference itself, but for sure in the evening sessions as well. Before I wish you a successful conference, allow me to thank my colleagues. I would like to extend a thank you to GL Events and AVERE team, which continues to grow, but yet remains a kind of tight-knit group. So Katerina, Raphael, Gorkem, Gabriele, Danielle, Vanita, Chris, Bart from the board, big thanks to each of you. And last but not least, I'll let you in one little secret, if you will allow me, Chris, but I'm on the stage, so I feel I'm allowed to do this. This will likely be the last conference we will organize as AVERE, because we are evolving for you, and we are planning a name change as well. So please stay tuned, because the next EVS happening in Sweden will be organized by the same organization, but with a different name. So once again, thank you all for being here, and I wish you a truly fantastic conference. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Maciej. We will not reveal the name change here on the stage, but you can talk to us in the break indeed. And a clear common message from both of us that now is the time to be loud and vocal in this discussion. With that in mind, it's my great pleasure to bring on stage our next speaker, Christina Bu, the Secretary General from the Norwegian EV Association, who we have a lot to learn from, I think, from being loud and vocal for a sustained period of time and really shaping the way the EV market has been developing in that country. And I also note, Christina, I saw yesterday that you are now one of the Times 100 climate leaders as well, which is brilliant. So fresh from that award, we're happy to bring on stage Christina from the Norwegian EV Association. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor. It's my first time in Monaco too, so I'm happy to have some warmth. It's not that warm in my country. I'm here to talk about the Norwegian EV success, and also that it's built on the foundations of the EU regulation. So after all the bad news talk, I have to come with the good news, right? So this is the situation in Norway. This is how it has evolved the last years. Look at how fast it has happened. So far this year, 89% of all new car sales are fully electric cars. What is interesting, though, is if you bracket that 89% down and divide it into private purchases and company and leased cars, private purchases is at 96%. So it's the companies and the leasing cars that are actually lowering the number. And back in 2015, we were at 17%, which is approximately where EU is now. So maybe that would have been where we were if we only had the EU regulation and didn't do more. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about. Where are these electric cars sold? All over Norway, obviously. It's not just a city phenomenon. I don't know if you know, but Norway is pretty rural. It's the size of Germany, and we're only 5.5 million people, and a lot of people are centered around Oslo and that region. But the cars are sold everywhere, even in the very north. Finnmark, size of Denmark, 70,000 people, and a lot of reindeer. I'm not joking. It's cold, long distances. They have a 77% market share. So it's going to come and tell me that this is not possible and very difficult. If we can build charging infrastructure around Norway, you can definitely do it in the rest of Europe as well. Steady but slowly, high new EV sales also changes the situation on the road. So currently 27% of all passenger cars are full electric cars in Norway. And as I said, we managed this. We wouldn't have managed this without the EU regulation, because without it, we wouldn't have gotten the cars. Just look at this. Back in 2018, I think it was around 17 different electric car models sold or on sale in Norway. What happened in 2019? We got the EU CO2 emission limits, and we got the cars. And that's also when we really started seeing the growth in Norway as well. But Norway, as I said, has done more, as you know. And very often people think that what we do is using our own money to subsidize EVs. That's not really the story. It's only at least part of the story. We also have a big malus, to use a French expression. The malus is huge, and it's grown a lot. It's what we call the registration tax or purchase tax. And as you can see, especially for petrol and diesel engine cars, pure petrol and diesel engine cars, it's increased a lot since 2021, almost doubled the last 3 years. Because this is the period where also the cars now really can compete with range and battery capacity. So it's less difficult to do that when we have the good cars. In addition to this, electric cars have been exempt VAT, and the VAT in Norway is 25%. So this in combination has made electric cars win. It's not that Norwegians are more environmentally friendly. It's all about policies, which can easily be copied in one form or the other. So in addition to this tax system, which is the most important, it has managed to sort of level out the price for electric cars and other cars. We've also had other incentives. Some of them are pulled back now, but we have lower tolls, access to bus lanes, and so on, which has made people aware of electric cars. How many of you have heard about the 2025 EV-only goal in Norway? Raise a hand. Yeah, so it's decided by Parliament that in 2025, all new car sales should be zero emission. Will we reach that goal? Because it's not by law, it's a goal. The politician, what they can do to reach it is, of course, use the measures they have, the tax system and the incentives. There will probably be a few ICE cars sold still next year, but I think we can get very close if our politicians do what is needed. And right now, they're negotiating the budget for next year. Luckily, we have a minority government, so they have to negotiate. And that's where we come in and help, you know, in this, with all the dates and the figures. But I'll come back to this a little bit, because when I think a lot of you feel the same as my colleagues do here, it's exactly what we need. We need all these individuals in companies and organizations who push forward and help and make politicians do what is needed. And we have been taking that role in Norway for many years now. We have more than 120,000 paying members, EV drivers, behind us, and over 50 employees. And we have the capacity to sort of force this transition to happen. And my colleague Unni is here today as well, and she heads the department that works on communication and public affairs. And I'm telling you, they're working very hard all the time. And it's been, I think maybe sometimes the world around us think that it's just been something that has just happened. But there's been so many debates in Norway as well. It's just that we don't really talk about it that much when we're visiting other countries. There's been debates and a lot of chances that this could have not have happened. So one example is this. We have been working 4 years to change the leasing regulation in Norway. As I told you before, private purchases was at 96%. Finally, it was changed 1st of July this year. What happened? It was the revised budget was presented mid-May. Look at the sales of EVs. What happened then? All the leasing companies and they needed to buy all the ICE cars they could before 1st of July when the regulation was changed. After that, the EV sales really went up. So now it's above 90% also with leasing and companies. And we are currently, last month, at a total market share of 94%. So that means we have 6 percentage points left to get to 100. What about the OEMs? Are they coping? I'm telling you, the competition in Norway is brutal. I already told you we have more than 150 different models, EV models on sale. This is the top list so far this year. And as you know, there has been early movers and late bloomers, but they all are getting there. Toyota, this is actually just by Q1 this year. Toyota has gone up a lot more since then as well, and they're pretty much planning to sell only electric cars next year in Norway as well. So they can do it when they have to. I'm just telling you. Okay, I showed you this already. Now the bad news from Norway. The 2025 goal also include light commercial vehicles, not just passenger cars. That story is not as happy, because that's the situation with light commercial vehicles. Only at 29%. So we're never going to reach the goal for light commercial vehicles. Part of the reason for this has been the lack of good enough products, vehicles, especially in Norway with the cold conditions, etc. We need four-wheel drive and so on. But this is quickly changing now, and we also need stronger policies in this area, and that's something we're working on. So we'll see how it will proceed. A little bit about charging. Probably all know this, but most of the charging is done at home. But when you go on a longer trip, people also need access to fast chargers. And how is Norway coping with this? It's a large country, as I said, few people, long distances, and a cold climate. I know the discussion in Europe is a lot about this. Charging is so difficult. Yes, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. So, of the EV drivers in Norway, 90% has fast charged the last 12 months. They don't necessarily do that often, but they do and they need it. So they're dependent on this. And it has been a worry that there's been queuing, a lot of challenges, and I used to worry a lot about this a few years ago. But the last few years, the new constructions of fast chargers has really spurred, because when the cars are there, the commercial interest follows. And this is almost only commercially built. So this is the transition. And that red line shows how many electric cars share one fast charger on a national level. And we're down at 88. We have never had a better capacity than we have now, which is pretty amazing. So that, I think, is the most important thing to learn from Norway. Growing is possible. Doing this is possible, even in a country with long distances. So what has happened? What do people think about this? We ask these questions every year. We have more than 15,000 respondents on our surveys. And poor coverage of fast chargers in 2022 was at #1, and charging queues was at #2 when we asked them what is your experience when it comes to disadvantages. Going to 2024, this went down to 6 and 7. So people are quite pleased and happy with the situation right now. Okay, I'm gonna finish very soon. Are we there yet? No, far from it, because we need to electrify all transport. This is precisely the reason why it's so important to stop meddling about and get to 100% market share as fast as possible. We cannot continue buying new cars that cannot run on renewable power. If you worry about climate change, why do we do that? So the quicker we get to 100%, the quicker we also electrify all of the cars on the road. And we currently have around 800,000 electric cars on Norwegian roads, and that has an effect. From 22 to 23, CO2 emissions from road transport in Norway went down with 7.8%. So it works now that we have more and more electric cars there. If you only look at passenger cars, it went down 12% in 1 year. So we're starting now to see the results. That was the end of my speech. I'm just going to do a little bit of commercial as well at the end. We also do a conference in Norway, in Oslo, the Nordic EV Summit, which will happen in April. Hope to see anyone who's interested there. Thank you for the invitation.
Many thanks, Christina. A message of positivity and hope for us taking forward that this transition can be done. And I also note that it's not through big subsidies that the changes have happened, but sensible, practical demand-side policies. I also note that yesterday, Executive Vice President Stéphane Séjourné from France, in his hearing at the European Parliament, committed that the European Commission would have its own demand plan for EVs across Europe. I see there's a lot we can learn from things that have already worked there in Norway, so lots for us to feed in. Now I'll invite onto the stage our next speaker, Markus Welz, the CEO of Hyundai Connected Mobility at Hyundai Motors. Markus, pleasure to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning. And Christina, let me just add one more thing besides the exciting facts about Norway, also the fact that you are pleasing in the minority government. As a German native, I'm very glad to hear that. It's always exciting for me when I get the opportunity to talk about innovation, and I would argue there is hardly any industry which is embracing innovation and change as much as the automotive industry. I mean, we are currently in the midst of the transition, and I really mean it, in the middle of the transition between the combustion engine and the electric vehicle. And this transition is a really daunting and delicate task to manage. But honestly, a lot of the challenges we currently see are not necessarily a surprise. I would describe this change process as a transition between two rather stable and solid states with a freezing phase in the middle. And I think this freezing phase, a phase of instability, unclarity, this is where we are at the moment. And from an automotive perspective, I mean, there are, I think, 6 simultaneous challenges to manage, right? Which is the decarbonization on the one hand, the digital revolution, regulation, the price volatility, the technology volatility, and also the workforce reskilling. But on the other hand, this is also a very, very unique opportunity. And as Hyundai, we have been incredibly successful so far in managing that. We are approaching a car sales of 620,000 vehicles in Europe this year. And with our award-winning Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 models, we have laid the foundation of a fascinating, precious, and future-proof brand. And we have always been in the early adopters of electric vehicles, and we will stay fully committed to that path, right? In our strategy includes that we will launch 21 new electric vehicle models until 2030 on a global scale, and our goal is to reach 2 million electric vehicles in the new car sales also in that time frame. Today, we're offering a broad range of, compact cars to full SUV-sized vehicles, and also the full range of powertrains. So it is, of course, still the combustion engine, but also hybrid electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, battery electric vehicle, and also the fuel cell electric vehicle. So with that, we give our customers a choice, because at the end of the day, individual mobility is also a very individual decision. So we're giving them opportunities on how every one of our individual customers can move to their very, own clean mobility strategy. And some of you may heard that we are actually in the process of launching the Insta. The Insta is our new, in Europe, the Insta is our new, small, affordable electric vehicle. And this is also a proof that such a small electric vehicle is everything else but boring, right? So it comes with a trendy SUV type of style, very spacious interior, eye-catching LED lighting system, and many, many more. And what is actually also quite exciting and important, that this small electric vehicle comes with a price tag of approximately 25,000 euros, right? So this is really an entry of where electric vehicles get more affordable, and we will certainly not plan to stop there. And what is also exciting, that also this affordable small electric car comes with a lot of technology equipped. So it has a lot of safety features, it has some of the most advanced connected car features in it, and also driver assistance systems. And this is important because this is the next revolution. We are actually already at the very beginning towards safer, smarter, more connected, and ultimately autonomous cars. So the vehicle will become the most sophisticated, the most desirable, and the most complex IoT device. People will still choose a specific powertrain, a design, a brand, but more and more of differentiation is actually coming through software and services. But looking into this, the challenges towards electric mobility, software-defined vehicle, there is actually one very fundamental topic, right? So that cars are losing almost all their negative attributes. So which makes individual mobility very promising, right? So cars will become cleaner, more affordable, cars will become safer, and also more and more connected, catering to the lifestyle of the next generations. And we also believe that our goal need to be to make transportation and automotive as a whole CO2 neutral. And this sounds bold, and it's a complex, but at the end of the day, a very manageable task. If you think about it, we have countries such as Germany, which come with a carbon dioxide emission of, I think, 8 tons per capita at the moment. There are countries like the US, which are at 15 tons of CO2 emissions per capita. And there are many other countries, such as France, UK, and a lot of Scandinavian companies, where we actually already much lower than 5 tons of CO2 emissions, without having any impact on the quality of life. The key to that is greener energy, or ultimately renewable energy, also in the primary power generation. And battery electric vehicle can help making renewable energy a reality. We believe that battery electric vehicles will be part of the public electricity management system. It can help to stabilize the grids and shave off peaks of oversupply of renewable energies. In Germany alone, this is 200 to 300 hours per year, where wind turbines have to be put off because there is an overcapacity for this very moment in the grid. So it serves as a gigantic power bank for households, cities, and entire regions. So it can balance the renewable energies. And we have actually, let's say, saying that is because we have been embarking into what is called the vehicle-to-grid and bidirectional charging journey. I think it was almost 4 years ago. It all started in the city of Utrecht in the Netherlands, where we have joined a project where the city was very ambitious on making a certain neighborhood, let's say, fully energized with renewable energy. And this only works if you have a sector coupling also into the mobility space. So we deployed a fleet of Ioniq 5 all-electric vehicles with bidirectional charging capability in a car-sharing model. So whenever people needed to resort to a car, they can access the car sharing. When they're done with their trip, they bring it back to a bidirectional charger, and the car is actually charging renewable energy when there is enough renewables in the system, and it can discharge when there is a need for additional, let's say, renewables in the overall energy system. Now we are bringing this technology in our production cars with the Ioniq 9. This is our next model in the Ioniq family, all electric, a larger SUV car. We are bringing vehicle-to-grid technology and also in future electric vehicles. And not because there is a regulation and not because many countries are ready for that from an ecosystem perspective, but we believe these are all important elements in order to help let's say, also have a broader cause of the electric vehicle ecosystem. And we will also not stop there with regard to the vehicle-to-everything strategy. We have a broad vehicle-to-everything strategy. And the next chapter we have actually already opened. So we are at the moment where we have probably been 4 years ago with vehicle-to-grid. And this time it's still, again, a partnership in the Netherlands, this time with Rijkswaterstaat, the Dutch ministry, and it's about safety. So there is a collaboration agreement between Hyundai Motor Group, also our sister brand Kia, and the Dutch government, which brings traffic and road safety information directly into our vehicles. So it's a vehicle-to-infrastructure project nationwide, and it's not a pilot, it's actually happening, and it will be deployed in all the existing cars on the road in the Netherlands. And what we are doing, we will actually receive information about traffic accidents in real time from the government, and we will also receive the real-time position of emergency vehicles. So this allows us to show the position of the emergency vehicle directly in the head unit of the car, and we can give a warning to a driver if an emergency vehicle like an ambulance is actually approaching. And this is a safety application, and what is really excited for engineers like me, that this is not just limited to this one use case, emergency vehicle approaching, which is a relevant one in the safety environment, but there are so many more use cases in the V2I arena, whether this is red light violation warning, curve speed warning, pedestrian and signalized intersection warning, many, many more opportunities in order to make driving safer. And in addition to that, which is also exciting, as I mentioned, this is not a pilot where we have 5 cars running on Dutch roads. We will actually be able to deploy this new software stack through an over-the-air update to a lot of the existing fleets in the Netherlands, so that there is also a large range of users which can actually benefit from that. So we believe that connectivity, electrification, it goes hand in hand. But when I talk about connected car, what do I actually mean? A connected car is a car that features intelligent systems. It can improve its own operation, and it can also increase the safety, convenience, and comfort of the driver. So it's not just a SIM card in the vehicle or one feature or the infotainment system. The goal is to provide better trips, safer trips, smarter trips, more reliable trips. And one of the biggest challenges, or still a challenge, whether it's the biggest, it's probably debatable. It also depends a little bit on the individual situation. But one of the challenges in a fast-scale adoption of electric vehicles for consumers is still range anxiety, right? So is the car really fitting to my commuting needs? And connected car technology is also able to solve that. We can make charging uneventful. So no need to worry about where is the next charging station, is it in operation, is it occupied, and how do I actually pay there? You can all, let's say, integrate this into the vehicle, that you can plan, book, and pay for charging in an integrated fashion with the vehicles. We will also be launching these in-car payment capabilities with the Ioniq 9, so our next model coming early next year. And we will also, let's say, apply this retrospectively to other vehicles which are already on the road. And this is also not just limited to one service such as charging. It's about parking, fueling, and there's certainly also more opportunities in the future. So here's the thing, right? As an OEM, I think traditionally have always been worried about how we are going to sell more cars. But today, I think we worry about what if all we do is selling more cars. So I think in the not too far distant future, we will be at the stage where we'll get very affordable cars at the very state-of-the-art electric connected vehicle at a much more lower price point. And consumers can add additional features and functionality over the whole life cycle of the car. So for an OEM, also this means that the business model will change. It is not only about selling more cars, selling higher price trim levels or more options. It is also deploying software over the entire vehicle life cycle and also finding value-added functionalities where consumers are hopefully willing to pay for that. Because also these investments are, of course, a challenge from a financial perspective. And the good news also on the software-defined vehicle, the software-defined electric vehicle, is all these innovations are not only relevant for the car, but also it will unlock the full potential of autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is certainly a relevant element of a software-defined vehicle. As Hyundai, we are, let's say, engaged with many of our affiliated companies. Motional, we have a collaboration with Waymo in the US, which we recently launched, and also we have 42Dot, which is a software stack company in Korea. But for us, this is not only providing the software stack in the Hyundai vehicles, but it is also enabling business models such as mobility as a service. A lot of the business models, shared autonomous vehicle, robo-taxis, are currently limited by a really commercially viable business model, and self-driving cars will fix that. So there is an opportunity for the automotive industry to reinvent how we sustainably and seamlessly move in cities, being more digitalized and fully electric. And this is certainly our vision and our ambition, what we are pursuing in the automotive space. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Marcus. The electric connected vehicle of the future is a truly exciting place to be, and especially what you were saying about grid flexibility, all of the cost savings we can get from that. I know I can take that back to my parents and show them the real benefits that these electric vehicles will be giving to their daily lives too. Without further ado, though, I'd like to bring on stage our next speaker, Graham Evans from S&P Global, who will be sharing his market insights with all of us. Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor on behalf of S&P Global Mobility. I think my role here is to share some data-driven insights on where we are, independent, data-driven perspectives on where the market is at, and to really reiterate the fact that we are on this journey. There's great progress that's been made, but the journey is not done. That's me. I've been with the business just over 8 years now. I joined IHS as it was, just as it merged with IHS Markit, and maybe you've heard of that name. In 2022, we became part of S&P Global. Many of you have probably heard of S&P Global, the S&P 500. It's the same company. We are part of this slew of verticals here, including our ratings and indices colleagues. This has been a really nice move for us when it comes to things around energy transition, sustainability, evaluating demand for critical aspects like raw materials. We get to work with our colleagues across the verticals to provide the data-driven and independent insights that the market needs. We perform a consumer survey every year. We go out and speak to 8,000 consumers in 8 of the major automotive markets. These are EV owners or intenders. And we ask them what's working for you and what's not working for you quite yet. In terms of what does work, consumers, if you can put money back in their pocket, you tend to have a good chance of changing their behavior. Certainly consumers like the fuel savings and the cost of ownership. And many of our early adopters are keen to see the environmental benefit of moving to EV. At the same time, consistently over the years that we've performed this survey, 3 issues always come up: range, charging time, and cost. Reality is we also speak to the OEMs as well. This is part of a piece of work that I've been leading over the last 12 months, where we go and ask the OEMs, well, how can we help? What challenges remain for you? And really what's come out from that is the same 3 issues, that range, charging time, and cost by way of affordability are what the OEMs have a laser focus on delivering now to make EVs acceptable and appealing for all. When it comes to range, longer range and real-world range. What range would the consumer actually experience in reality, in normal operating conditions? Faster charging time. reality is we need faster public domain charging, and this kind of analogy with the gas refueling experience, we need to find a way to deliver that for consumers, not just as well for consumers to tackle dwell times, but also for the charge point operators to make sure that these business models really stick. And when it comes to cost, we know that profit margins are tough on electric vehicles at the moment as scale builds out. And of course, for many of the European OEMs in particular that produce these mainstream B segment, C segment vehicles, this is a real challenge to make good margin on these vehicles. So this is the focus. You know, these three critical areas, and the battery is critical to all of these three areas. It's really important to reiterate that with faster charging batteries, with like bigger, more energy dense batteries, we can tackle the range point, and of course we need to drive down cost within the battery to make the vehicles themselves more affordable and more profitable. I've got a few data-driven charts. Bear with me, I'm an engineer. I sometimes work on the basis that everyone else is an engineer too. I'll do my best to explain some of these. This is part of some work we've done around all-electric range, both, let's say, tracking the range of existing electric vehicles, but also modeling the range of future electric vehicles based on our research around battery capacity, technologies that they will have. This is effectively the longest range electric vehicle available on the market in each of the given years. We then also have the average electric range by production volume for all of the electric vehicles on the range, and also the minimum. What we can see is that actually, you know, people say we need longer range electric vehicles. Well, actually, those longer range electric vehicles are coming for those people that need them. For the average consumer, you know, this kind of sweet spot around 400 kilometers for the range, you know, we're going to be about there. And actually, we're going to see incremental improvements with what we deem to be largely incumbent technology between now and the end of the decade. So without necessarily a major breakthrough in something like solid-state battery technology, which we see a bit further out for mainstream applications, you know, we do think we can get to this point with a further 10% improvement where the average electric vehicle will have a range of somewhere around 430 kilometers, which is really what the vast majority of consumers need and can live with. Charging. I wanted to put this chart in, even though it's quite a complex chart, so bear with me. On the vertical axis here, we have the power level that the vehicle can receive in kilowatts, which is a good proxy for fill rate, a bit like with a gasoline-powered vehicle. On the bottom there, we have state of charge, which again, broadly analogous to time, so how long the vehicle is going to dwell. We've got some typical electric vehicles here in the gray, you know, and how they currently charge. And what we typically see in terms of the charging behavior is that you often get quite a peak in the early minutes of the charge, but then quite quickly this peak kind of peters off, right? And there's a decline in the speed of the charge and the amount of kilowatt hours you're getting per minute that you dwell. So in terms of advances in the industry, we really want to push the electric vehicles up towards the top right-hand corner of that graph so that we meet nearer the desired EV charging profile. And this is really important, not just to give a faster charge, but also to make it more predictable, to make sure that if you go and pull up and you plug in at a DC fast charge station, you know how long you're going to be there. And this is really helpful from the perspective of planning, how much infrastructure is required, and knowing how long people are going to dwell for. Advances in battery technology are ongoing that will really support this, not just the battery, but also the battery management system, how the battery can receive that power and can it kind of push into this far end of the profile. And we see, for example, what CATL have launched with this Shenxing battery technology earlier on this year, that they are managing to achieve this very, very flat profile. In terms of battery development, this is really what we should be pursuing, is trying to replicate and better this so that we can tackle that final section of the charging profile and deliver people this predictable charging experience that we think they need. When it comes to cost, there's some work that our team have done around thinking about the average manufacturer stated retail price of the vehicle and comparing market to market. Reality is that even now, at the moment, we still have this kind of circa 20–25% higher retail price on a battery electric vehicle versus its internal combustion engine equivalent. In China, they've definitely managed to close this gap, and indeed it would appear that they've perhaps superseded this and managed to achieve the point where the battery electric vehicle is slightly cheaper on average than the internal combustion engine equivalent. This is perhaps somewhat driven by this microcar segment, where the very small battery electric vehicles are inherently cheaper than the internal combustion engine ones. Actually, we see there, excluding the A segment, that the trend is better, but broadly equivalent. So really, China has done this great job at driving down cost, securing the supply chain associated with the batteries and the critical elements in the electric vehicle. And really, we need to find a way as a European engineering community, automotive community, how can we catch up and leapfrog this in terms of the products that we develop. So those products are coming. I think an interesting chart here, I'll start on the right side first. From our forecast, there's this slew of, let's say, B segment vehicles coming to market in the coming years. Imagine 800,000 per year B segment battery electric vehicles from various OEMs coming to market. And this is really being driven by the CO2 framework. So obviously we have this, at the start of 2025, this 15% reduction comes in. So for OEMs to be able to sell vehicles, sell the fleet and not be at the end of the fines, they need to have these vehicles ready. We're going to see this kind of stop-start of production in order to meet that, whereby perhaps OEMs hold back on the delivery of some of these new battery electric vehicles for the start of the new year, because then they will contribute to that 2025 number. But lots more choice coming. Consumers want more choice. They don't want to compromise on their vehicle ownership experience, and I think that the OEMs have definitely heard that message. Sometimes I stand up and present this slide, it feels like an admission of guilt. Regrettably at S&P Global, there is no crystal ball, there is no unique window into the future and how it will prevail. Our forecasts are updated on a monthly basis, they change. But of course, there are many changes in the environment around the electric vehicle development and the adoption. OEM strategies have changed, market conditions have changed. The incentive framework is hugely influential to whether people are prepared to make the shift to battery electric vehicles. So over the last couple of years, that's the shift that we've made in our European battery electric vehicle production forecast. We have this dip, but then we have this acceleration coming there as that slew of smaller segment vehicles come to market, and we think that consumers will respond to that, and the sales will mimic the production ramp up as we see here. So we in our independent perspective, let's say, we too view the 2024 situation as a bit of a blip. So just a few summary remarks then. From a consumer sentiment perspective, crossing this chasm to let's say mass market electric vehicle adoption. To do this, we really need these cheaper models. We need them to have longer range. We need them to be more affordable, and we definitely need the provision of plentiful, faster DC charging stations and a better charging experience. When it comes to technology innovation, we do think that the incremental improvements that we'll see with existing technology will largely deliver these technology improvements. The battery is critical to this, as I mentioned, and establishing the supply chains in order to compete with, as best we can, in order to compete with China. This is essential. It cannot happen in Europe without this. And really, this EV landscape, 2024 did break this exponential trend that we've seen in the adoption of battery electric vehicles. Still growth in many major European nations and many markets around the world, but they've certainly reacted differently. And incentives have been really critical to this. You remove an incentive, the market does respond to this. So incentives will remain critical to ensuring that this next wave of perhaps more cautious battery electric vehicle adopters respond to the technology and enjoy the benefits of it. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to speaking to everyone throughout the next couple of days, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you, Graham, and thanks to all. We are now awaiting the arrival of perhaps the most important speaker of our morning, which is the Prince of Monaco. I've been informed that he is in the building and he is heading down the stairs, so we should not have too long to wait for him. In the meantime, as Graham has said, 2025 is looking better than 2024. It's looking like a brighter year for all of us, and that's certainly a message we try and pass forward in Brussels, that especially it's a good time to buy an electric car, but we also should not look at this 2024 scenario in isolation. Maybe as we await for the Prince's arrival, I can do a quick survey on the room just to test where we are in terms of our own EV ownership. Can people put their hands in the air if they already are owning an electric car and driving one? Driving, let's say driving. Okay. So I think that's about 50, 60% of the room. And so if you haven't yet got an electric car, please put your hand up as well. Oh, just a few. Are any of you thinking of buying an electric car next year when the prices and models will be so advantageous? I know, I see not. But I do see that our next speakers are arriving in the room. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to have with us His Serene Highness Prince Albert II, the Prince of Monaco. Prince Albert, please come to the stage. We're ready for you. I am. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's our great pleasure to say again a warm welcome to His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Prince of Monaco. Prince Albert has given his kind patronage to our event today, and it's our great honor for the Prince to be here to share some opening words with us and our event. So Prince Albert, I'd now like to welcome you to the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to Monaco today for this edition of the AVERE e-mobility conference. This conference comes at a significant time for us, not only talking about its coinciding with the AVERE Monaco show, which has marked the Principality's commitment to electric and clean mobility for close to 20 years. This year again, AVERE is testimony to our ambition to invent an alternative future without jeopardizing our planet's climate balance or the promises of progress and opportunity offered by e-mobility. This commitment is at the heart of the policies implemented with my government, a commitment which is now in its 20th year, as it was formalized for the first time in 2005, when we launched our energy transition strategy on the occasion of the EVS21 symposium. E-mobility was at the time a promise. We did not expect such a rapid, universal, and above all, compelling growth, with a performance that is now comparable and even greater than that of combustion engines. Yet, this is what is happening. We can see it right here in the Principality of Monaco, where eco-friendly vehicles meet with growing success year after year. They now represent over 20% of the local car fleet, with quite spectacular growth over the last year, with ICE cars decreased by approximately 3% a year. Growth is, of course, less spectacular in regards to utility vehicles, but we're working on this with significant efforts on the part of government administrations. More generally, we are aware of the efforts we still need to accomplish in order to reach our core objective, carbon neutrality by 2050. These efforts concern all of us here in Monaco and beyond, because every country is up against the same challenges, and because it is a vital issue at stake for the future of humanity. And for once, the alternative is now quite clear, thanks to the progress and availability of eco-friendly vehicles. Today, alternative solutions are available. They are here in AVERE's stands, as we will be able to see, and in the streets of Monaco. They are spreading across all the streets of the world, and they are being developed in the labs and factories of most manufacturers. However, we must nevertheless note that the most advanced manufacturers in the field are not often European. This is a key challenge for our continent. We are aware of China's momentum in this regard, based on the comprehensive policy for resource management, which inevitably raises other environmental issues. At the same time, U.S. industry has greatly benefited from the IRA, which, although primarily aimed at countering Chinese progress has also had a direct impact on European competition. This should spur us into action before it is too late. All of us, public authorities, of course, who cannot witness this shift without assuming their responsibilities. This means further supporting the cost of green vehicles, especially of European origin, at every phase of their life, but also improving infrastructure and supporting the industrial sector's transition. Manufacturers, too, need to take up this challenge by understanding that the shutdown of combustion production lines in 2035 is inevitable, that delaying it would be neither effective nor desirable. And this holds true for health and environmental challenges, of course, but also industrial challenges within the context of competition that I just mentioned. Last, we need to involve motorists themselves, who need to appreciate the benefit of green vehicles, whether this be in terms of health, of course, but also maintenance, comfort, and even performance. This is one of AVERE Monaco's goals, and it is also the purpose of our commitment to electric mobility, sports competitions, such as the Formula E Grand Prix, or E-Prix, which we organize every year on the actual track of the Formula One Grand Prix, the E-Rally, which took place just a few weeks ago, or the Riviera Electric Challenge, whose participants have just left Monaco. We will be in Cannes tomorrow for the finish of this great competition. These events demonstrate that electric mobility is also a source of achievement, of emotion, but also of dreams. Confronted with a matter of survival for our planet, for our economy, for our economies, for our continent, for our children, each and every one of us needs to get involved. This is the purpose of today's conference, and the reason why I'm particularly pleased that it is being held here in Monaco this year. A testimony of I think, of the unwavering commitment of the Principality of Monaco by your side, side by side, for close to 20 years now. I wish you a very successful conference, and I thank you very much.
Thank you to the Prince again for his patronage of our event. It's now my pleasure to call this opening ceremony closed. I'm going to ask all of our speakers in this first session to come back on stage quickly for a family photo, including you, sir. I think so.